rabble, 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 rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. Oh, you're on.
Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Simon at Cemeteries and today I'm joined by my mate Sarah.
Hello!
This is probably going to be the first or second of about 4 times you're going to see Sarah on this channel.
It's too much already. Too much of something.
There has been some worry about singing.
Enough.
What I'm going to start doing is combining 2 videos that I did last year, which were my Reading Horizons, where I talked about what I had been reading, what I was reading, and what I was going to read next. And then I did book chats with my mates, but what I thought is combine the 2. I thought when I do these videos, I could let you know how I got to know the person in the video with me. And I got to know Sarah through books because of her book. See what I've done, which is the fictional account of Lizzie Borden. And I was given, apparently, the very first proof off the run at Hachette.
I saw on Twitter that you got it and I had this panic because I knew I was still working on edits and stuff, and I just felt like my guts just sank through the floor and out of my body. The beautiful thing about that was that I was able to message you and said, oh my god, I am so sorry for what you're about to read, because I have imposter syndromes and all that kind of stuff. And then you said, it'll be fine. I'm like, I don't know. And then we started doing that, and that was kind of the beginning.
And then I read it, loved it, and then we did an event a year and a half ago in Liverpool.
Yes.
Because Sarah's from Australia. Don't know if you've noticed.
No.
We did an event with Paula Hawkins, and that was it. That was the online friendship that had spawned was sort of locked in. So, the book that I have... In fact, no, guess first. How rude of me.
You are rude.
Not even guess. Ladies first.
Thank you. I read Ottessa Moshfegh's My Year of Rest and Relaxation.
How did you find it?
Well, I went to a bookstore and I went and got it. This had been on my radar since it had come out. Do you ever get this where I do it all the time? I buy a bunch of books because I do want to read them.
By the same author?
Or just any books.
Okay.
And then I go...
Have you been in this room?
No, I know. And downstairs and in the other rooms.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It's a book house. I very much knew about her, and I'm like, all right, I know about her. I'm going to read her stuff. I'm just going to get all the things. And then I hadn't read them. And then I thought, no, I'm going to start with this because everyone was raving about it. And I have mixed emotions, Simon. And so I will say this. I couldn't...
I will say this.
I will. I'm about to. I think she's a fantastic writer. I think she's great. And I couldn't put this book down. Like, every chance I got, I was kind of reading through it, and I laughed a lot, particularly when the character...
We should say what it's about, shouldn't we? It's about a woman who literally goes to bed for a year.
Yeah, she takes a whole bunch of... you can't even say the sleeping pills, but like they knock her out. And because she's going through some trauma and grief, and also maybe like a general malaise in her life, she just doesn't... And she can't really face the world, or doesn't want to. And she feels bored, and so she goes, well, I'll just sleep through it all. And it is set in the year 2000. Up until the point that 9/11 happened. So it's set in New York. Okay. The protagonist is horrible. It's she is a...
But that can be a good thing, can't it?
No, it is a good thing, and I think she's horrible for a reason. So midway through this, I'm like, I cannot bear this character anymore. I want to punch her in the face. There was a part of me goes, I'm not sure I care about an extremely privileged white woman living in New York going through a moment where she can't relate to people, she doesn't want to relate to people. And while I think that's not a terribly bad thing, by the time I was going through it, I just felt it was becoming very pretentious.
You read this over the end of the year and beginning of the new year, which I find unacceptable.
It is acceptable. You can read whenever you want to, at any time.
But you're not allowed to start a new year with a new book.
Generally I do, but I was going through I read many books at once. There's almost always one book that will rise to the top, and I'll rush to finish that. And so, on the one hand, I completely understand why people love this. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, I think I just didn't like it.
Wow.
And so, having said that, I highly recommend people read it. I will also say this though, will I read another book from her? I don't know.
Oh, you should give Eileen a go.
Okay, I will. Anyway, that's what the last book I read. Loved it, kind of. Hated it, kind of. Get it.
So, moving on.
Sorry.
On to the next book. So, we'll be talking about this in more detail in a different video. This is The Trauma Cleaner by Sarah. I hope I get this right. Krassenstein, yeah. And this is non-fiction. This is the last book that I finished. I think this is one of the best books I've read in a long time. It's part of my Women's Rights with a W series. In the interim, I really, really love it. I'll probably talk about it a bit in my wrap-up, but then, yeah, we'll talk about it in more depth. But it is about it's a really good book. It's about a woman who cleans up after trauma, so they can be murders, suicides, or it can be hoarders, or people with mental illnesses. But then you find out more about this woman, and she is fascinating.
And she's a force to be reckoned with.
What a tease we are. So there's that one. I put that was swift, very swift.
So are we moving into a currently reading?
Yeah.
So the book I'm currently reading is Rachel Cusk's Transit. And it is the second book in the trilogy. And I will say this, I'm meant to be doing a buddy read. Claire, I'm sorry. So I got outline, and what did I do? I read it.
Did you like it? Obviously, because then you went to Transit. Is this the one that you said to me that after you read it, you were like, this is genius?
Yes. Simon, I read it, I loved it. I had heard, some people had said that, the first half is not great, and then it just blows you out of the water, and then the rest of the books kind of keep going that way. From page to cover and go to woe. Outline, if you haven't read it, just very quickly. For me, anyway, it's largely plotless, which I actually love those types of books. And it's more a book about ideas and conversations. Quite literally, the book is kind of done in about 10 conversations, and it's very much about observing and how we observe others, and then what it says about us and the way that we think of, because the character is quite judgmental. She's going through a few things which we don't know about. And I got to the end, and I don't know whether it's because I'd been in a reading rut, and this book just really, like, I have goosebumps right now thinking about the book.
You do?
I really do.
She really does.
I loved it, and I got to the end and I thought, I think that book is a work of genius for what it does and how it made me feel. And so I could not wait to start this. And it picks off exactly where it went on, except Transit is very much about transitions and people transiting, if that's a word, transitioning through different parts in their life and the way that they're feeling. This is a slow read, because what she is able to do in such a little amount of time, the books feel so much bigger than they are, the more depth. And there are some lines I just think, God, I can never write another book again, because how can you when this exists?
Please do.
I love it.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is, because my mum really, really wants to read these,
Yeah.
and we're going away in April together, and I'm currently kind of putting a selection of books that we can have as a book group that we should swap and share.
Oh, that's nice.
So I might take outline.
I want to say it's plotless, like little things happen.
No, I've
but they're the
had this
catalyst for
debate
things,
on
yeah.
Plot or No Plot with Russell, who you've met.
Yes.
Lovely Russell. And we talked about that, because I think every book has a plot. It just isn't necessarily a rollicking romp of a plot.
Yeah.
But there's always something happening in every book.
Something does happen, and it has to be enough, I maybe in some ways, to kind of keep you wanting to keep reading the book. But I think there are books that are solely about characters who I like, and you just read it because you want to be immersed in this kind of world and with them. There are books that you read because you want to learn something profound, or something like that, where it's literally about ideas and all that kind of stuff. There are books that you want to read just for pure escapism and stuff. So I think every book has its place, and as long as they're doing the goal that that particular book set out to do, then I think it's successful and worthy.
I'm currently reading, which is a short story collection called Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin. I have not read Fever Dream, but
No,
I've heard
neither
it's
have I,
amazing.
but it is on my TBR.
These are her short stories, which are like Brothers Grimm with a Latino twist.
Ooh.
And that's what I need to say about it. I'm going slowly with it because I've had guests here, and even when you have your bookie friends come and stay, you don't do any reading. Not a word.
Listen to this. I'm sitting right here.
This is all a collection of short stories, and I've only read a couple of them so far. As I said, been trotting too much. But also, I really struggle sometimes with short stories whilst I'm reading a novel.
Ooh.
I was doing better with this when I was reading The Trauma Cleaner.
Yeah.
But now I've gone into novel mode. It's like I can't do two fictions at once.
Do you think it's because it's too many people for you?
I think it's short stories, so there's a lot of stories plus another story.
Yep, sure.
I think I'd rather be reading two novels that are about two different things than a short story collection and a novel. The first one that I read, the second one I wasn't so sure about, but the first one was really powerful, and I've noticed a lot of short story collections do that. The first one's like a big let's get you in, this
Yeah.
is what you're going to be expecting, and then the next one always does a bit of that. But the first one is about women who have been recently got married and their husbands drive them to this gas station and then just leave them there. There's something slightly sinister and supernatural about these women, and they're all waiting for something. That's all I'm going to say. But it's really, really good. Yeah, so I think you'd really like it.
Sounds great.
And then the one that we've both been reading
Yes, indeed. Trying to read.
is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Now, again, this is one we won't talk about much here because lovely Pip is coming round, and we're gonna have a half-time crime time where we talk about where we're at, because Pip hasn't finished it, I've not finished it,
And I have
Sarah's
not
not
finished
finished it. So we thought we'd talk about expectations. We thought we'd talk about what you expect from a book when you're reading it, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. I think that'd be a really interesting video,
Yes.
even if I say so myself. It's a very clever book in a lot of ways.
It is. I will give it that very much so.
Yeah,
very
it's
clever.
a very clever book, and I think I can understand why so many people are reading it. That's what I will say about that
Yes.
one.
So I'm going to move on to my horizons. One I'm literally about to read. Well, I've got a lot of books, but these are the ones. Okay. We went to Wales in a time.
Yesterday, as we record this.
I'd never been to Wales before. It was quite lovely. And Simon, we went to a castle. We went to the local bookshop, and I thought, I don't actually know too much about Wales, historically. What could I possibly get that will tell me everything I need to know? And I found this.
Haunted
Wales.
Wales by Peter Underwood.
Thank you, because I can't see the thing. He goes through different places around Wales, chooses a building, talks quite a little bit about the hauntings there. And I figured, because, you know, in some ways I think it's really great to know the place where you are by the folk tales and the things that people share orally that could come about from.
But as we were walking around Conway yesterday, what was making me laugh was I was sort of looking over and just going, I think I could write a murder mystery here.
I could. I was very taken.
Or a ghost story.
I think more of a ghost story than anything. I was quite taken by the wind and the sky and the buildings and the bits and bobs. So that's it. So anyway, ghosts, folklore, orality. Moving on. Next book is Milkman.
By
Anna
Anna Burns. Which recently won the Booker. Now I want to ask the question.
Yeah.
Do you want to read this book anyway, or do you want to read it because it won the Booker, or is it both?
No. I want to read it anyway because I had heard about this book months and months and months ago. And I'll be honest, I, particularly in 2018, because I'm trying to write my novel and all that kind of stuff. So
We're all waiting.
Well, you'll be waiting. So I'd been wanting to read Milkman for ages because all I had heard about it was by someone who didn't like a detractor, if you will. And I said, oh God, these sentences run on forever. There are all these really long paragraphs. It's really hard to read, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, actually sounds amazing. Sign me up. I cannot wait to read it. And I think one of the things I kind of love about difficult books is that I like to be challenged as a reader. And I also have feelings about how people talk about books being difficult, because I think if we talk about how are they difficult, and also I'm going to stop.
No, I'm laughing because I've called it a difficult book.
I think sometimes we can fall into a trap of talking about a book being difficult. It's almost like telling someone, oh, you can't do maths, it's too hard. I think you can start, particularly for maybe like a general reader who might want to try something a bit more challenging. If you start talking about books being too hard to read, they become too hard to read, and then no one reads them.
It's a self-fulfilling
It
prophecy.
is, and I just think, and maybe it's okay to say, yeah, it's a little bit, it's different, and it can be challenging, and stuff, but to keep going on and on about something being so difficult almost makes it seem like this book is almost unreadable, and you shouldn't, and you should never push yourself to read.
I like the
or
word
try
challenging.
something. Yes,
It's a challenging book.
That's it.
My next book is going to be, I think, Her by Gary Disher. I was sent this book by Sarah's friend Robert. I really, really love Robert. And if I ever come to Australia, I will do videos with Robert.
You should.
I will.
It's great.
I
Hi,
will.
Robert. What happened?
That was my
yes.
forceful look.
Oh,
Anyway,
what
so,
you call it.
and this was a book that we have chatted about on Instagram.
Yes.
Because Sarah read it and was very bad, and I just went, ugh, that cover, what?
Don't judge a book by its cover.
We all do. Because I thought it was like meat, like a bloody body with meat all, and it's not, it's a tree.
Yeah. A
So then
bloody tree.
A bloody tree. Oh, it is
bleeding
bloody,
tree.
so
It's
I wasn't
sappy.
wrong.
It's sappy and bleeding. It is Do you want to say a little bit about it, or can I?
No, I don't really know anything about it.
That's amazing!
You like quite quirky books.
I do.
And I think this is going to be a dark, twisted, quirky book.
It is. It's very gothic.
Oh, well, hello. In fact, Sarah, if you just want to go out, I'll be.
Hey, Simon. Technically didn't swear because I whispered it.
So tell me about it, because I know it's like early 19th century,
Yes,
20th century in Australia.
It is such. I'm going to use the word ugly.
Oh, okay.
But it's not. The themes that... So basically, he kidnaps girls and women to make them into a family. And it basically kind of goes through certain moments in Australian history. So the First World War is in there just a little bit, and so as she's growing up, and it's basically the way that this man in particular uses the women's bodies, the women's and the land, and it's very much a reflection of a wide Australia and what, you know. Because
I think when you'd finished reading it, you were kind of like, I can't quite take in what I've just read.
Yes.
Was the general, and then I was like, oh, that interests me, but the cover.
I read it in 2 sittings, and the only reason why it wasn't 1 sitting is because I needed a break. I felt...
those books can be quite...
Yeah, and there is a power to the writing, and there's a particular kind of feeling that you get when you read it, which I felt... And there are moments in it that are genuinely ugly, but the way that Gary kind of writes about them, it's kind of amazing, and I felt like my breath was being taken away, but it is super gothic and dark and horrible. And I absolutely loved it. I do try to go into books blind. I don't always like to know what happens in it, and so I didn't really know much about it, and I want to keep it that way for you.
Okay.
It's just that the feeling that I got from it, it was almost like this blood rush.
Well, that's going to be a difficult one for me to review and a wrap up when I've read it then.
Oh, but you're really good at doing things.
Hard times.
Anyway.
But this one.
Loved it.
Yeah. So, those are the books that we have read, are reading, and are going to read. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
For flying all this way. Do you know what? This is real dedication.
Look, anything for you, anything for them.
I will see you in another video very soon, and Sarah will be back in some other videos soon too.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Blah, 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 blah.